it shouldn't be a novel concept that a marketer's responsibility is to best represent the customer. Like you should in many ways represent VOC. And I would argue who's the closest to your customers in these environments? It's the frontline workers, the care team members.
That is Jeremy Rogers, Vice President of Patient and Consumer Experience at Indiana University Health. He was commenting on how there's an obligation for healthcare marketers to collaborate and listen to frontline staff because they are the ones that have the most interaction with the ultimate customer in healthcare: patients. There's just so much to unpack in that one statement. So if you thought that clip was good, you won't want to miss all the other great gems that Jeremy drops on the topics of AI, marketing leadership, and patient engagement. Let's get to it.
Sway Health.
Jeremy, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Colin. Great to be here.
It's always great to have you. You have such amazing insights, and I can't wait to get right to it. In fact, let's just jump in. Let's just jump in with a big bang here. You are going to be talking a lot about AI this year in 2025. So let's talk about that.
Do
Where
we
do
have
you
to,
feel?
Colin? I'm
Well,
kidding.
I think it's sort of like I think we're obligated at this point to our AI overlords to mention
Well,
them.
it's like Beetlejuice. If you mention it 3 times, like something pops up. So we'll avoid that.
I love it. I love it. But Jeremy, okay, where do you feel we are in the AI hype cycle relative in healthcare?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would say, looking at the old Gartner view, Colin, we're definitely past the peak. I don't think we're to like what they call, I think it was the trough of disillusionment. I don't think we're there yet, but we're probably just post-peak, is my opinion.
And why? What makes you say that? What makes you feel we're sort of past the highest point in that hype?
Maybe it's me being optimistic, but I mean, we've been on this roller coaster for what, 2 years now, roughly 2.5 years. Um, Last year, I think, every one of our vendors had an AI pitch. I think it was obligatory. They had to have an AI slide in their deck, even if it wasn't core to their business. I think we're a little bit past that now. I still get the occasional reference where, oh, someone says they've got a neural net, but they don't really know what a neural net even means. So we're kind of beyond that. However, we still get a lot of new prospective partners or vendors talking a big game, like really pie in the sky stuff. I guess I'm optimistic because I do see more people focusing on the pragmatic use cases, like how can we get past the buzz and actually find where these capabilities can add value for patients, consumers, team members, providers. I think we're more in that phase now.
Man, I hope we're in that phase. I think that, I would love to see much more practical applications of AI, or at least hear about them. And I think over the last year, people have really been zeroing in on, okay, let's put AI in a place where we can see what difference it makes. And I'm hoping that this year we start to see some of the results of those early implementations. Because you're right, I think we're tired of hearing what's possible. I think now what people are like, show me what's real.
Yep, bingo.
So, so having said that, where um, what does this mean for healthcare marketing leaders? Like, how do we help navigate, in other words, as marketing leaders through this part of the hype cycle around AI?
Yeah, it's a tough spot right now. I think you can't be on the sidelines. You have to be trying some of these things, but you got to pick your spots. You cannot boil the ocean, Colin. I would encourage leaders to find ways where their teams can try these things in a safe environment. Many of us operate in highly regulated companies, so you've got to partner with your privacy folks, your compliance folks, your infosec folks. But if you build those guardrails, you've got to try these things. You cannot wait and see because if I'm really long term very, very optimistic about the value and benefit these solutions will provide. I think if you wait too long, your competitors will leapfrog you. That's my belief.
I like how you put that, Jeremy. Like, I think at this point, AI is here to stay. And I think it's more of a question of where can you deploy it that makes sense for you, as opposed to sticking your head in the sand and going, let's just wait until the best practices come out.
No
Because I
doubt,
think
no
to your
doubt.
point, it's moving so fast, it's too late by then.
Yeah, and I think Colin, for marketers specifically, we have an obligation to really understand how our customers perceive these capabilities. I think too many people get enamored by the bright and shiny technology part of it. I've seen many examples where we have patients or customers that it actually scares them because they don't know all the things these tools can do. They sometimes confuse like, oh, maybe it's just a basic text message, but they don't know, am I talking to a human being or a robot? We as marketers have to be very, very mindful of that. That's our role in this environment is to help guide organizations to best serve our customers.
Right. And then you touched on something there. It's like we have to be authentic in our use of AI, which is a
Mhm.
weird, really weird sentence to say. But, I think when people find out after the fact that you used AI either to generate content or to interact with someone, it almost feels like you cheated them.
Mhm.
Right. But if you were upfront about it, then I think people go, oh, this is cool. What a great, efficient way to use your
Yeah, no,
resources.
I love use cases where AI is summarizing. So for example, like if a patient has a big discharge summary, it's a multiple page document, have an AI tool help them better understand it. I love those approaches. I like what I'm seeing around like dynamic translation or personalization. We have a ton of content we produce. How can we tailor it to speak to a very specific audience? I love those types of applications.
Love it. And Jeremy, you've just reminded me, I forgot off the top to ask you to introduce yourself so that our audience knows who you are and what organization you are with.
Sure thing, Colin. So Jeremy Rogers, I'm with IU Health in Indiana. I lead what's now called our patient and consumer experience team. I've been with the organization for just over 9 years now.
And congratulations on your recent promotion.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, I have to ask, how is IU Health using AI for marketing, or are you at all?
We are indeed, and like my comments earlier, we've been dabbling for quite a while. I mean, people define AI differently. We've been using things like NLP and sentiment analysis for years and years, but those, it's not really Gen AI. On the Gen AI side, it's really more about efficiency. Like most systems, we're doing things like scribing for doctors, ambient listening, things like that. But on the marketing side, a lot of it is content creation, content optimization. So it's maybe helping our content producers outline content, summarize content, structure content. On the SEO side, we're doing a ton of work around search optimization, search research. Tools like this are great at data trending. So we have a ton of data. How do we find those signals within the data to find like where we need to take action? And then like sentiment analysis, we've been using that for years in terms of all the feedback, the VOC we get from patients. What are those sentiments? What are those trends that we're seeing? Those are where we've had the most impact.
And are you using AI at all to engage with patients?
Um, I, Engagement is a tough word to define sometimes, Colin. I will tell you, pro the short answer is probably no, not yet. We are closer though. I'm in conversations now, for example, like, bots that call patients to do like intake information. We are not doing that yet. We're trying to take a thoughtful approach from an ethical perspective on are these AI tools ready to directly engage a patient? We worry about hallucination. We worry about some of the parameters around the models. I've heard conversations like, do we trust a Gen AI to write directly to a patient's medical record? I don't think we're there yet. I think we will get there. So it's really how do we find those applications that are really trustworthy, add value to both a patient and a care team. So I would say, frankly, right now we're not quite yet at the direct patient engagement, but I think we're not so far off.
And but it sounds like even though you haven't deployed any, you are, it sounds like experimenting with it, trying it, finding the limitations of it so that when you do deploy it, you have the guardrails as you put
Yeah,
in
yeah.
place.
So we're working very cross-functionally, trying to form out what is our strategy around things like this. We have to try things, but we have to do it in a very, very thoughtful manner. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
In the meantime, it sounds like you're using AI to make yourselves more effective and efficient. You mentioned SEO, you mentioned sentiment analysis, and doing those things to make you more effective at engaging and being where patients are. Is that where we can get most bang for our buck right now in terms of AI's use in improving customer and patient experiences?
I would say, in my opinion, on the marketing side, yes. I think if you take a broader lens across healthcare, I think a lot of the back office efficiency, I mentioned scribing, I mentioned ambient listening, there are innumerable opportunities there. But from a marketing perspective, yes, I would say on the content side, the efficiency side is really where most of the value is right now.
I love it. Is there any sort of area in particular around patient or customer engagement that you think, if you had to pick, that would be the place where you would first deploy?
Um, That's a great question. I think it depends where you're at. A lot of systems do a lot of content creation. If you do a bunch of content creation, you can make some great strides there. If not, it may be in kind of the data analysis, the trend analysis stuff that may be more valuable for you. But I think again, you've got to try different things. There's so, I mean, every day there's a new tool, a new vendor. Just pick your spot and do something.
I'm gonna move off the AI topic
Go.
for a little bit. This will make our AI overlords a little sad, but I have to ask you this because over the last 6 months, I've been hearing a lot more and more about marketing departments at provider organizations really trying to collaborate more with the front line, the people who actually deal with the patients, the people who check them in, the people who provide them care, and so forth. How or what advice do you have of how marketing teams can work with those frontline folks? Because I gotta say, the two don't normally interact together too much.
Uh, Yeah, fair. I think it shouldn't be a novel concept that a marketer's responsibility is to best represent the customer. Like you should in many ways represent VOC. And I would argue who touches, who's the closest to your customers in these environments? It's the frontline workers, the care team members. So by definition, you need to be out there listening, learning, observing, that's just common sense stuff. I think it's got to be a virtuous partnership because, from a strategy perspective, the marketers are going to understand what's our value proposition, how are we differentiating from our competitors, where do we want to zig when maybe they're zagging potentially. And then I think it ties back to the experience too, because that in many ways your brand is your experience. And so that's really where I think the marketing partnership is critical there.
And how can marketing work with frontline? Is it just a matter of being there, listening, hearing what they're telling you, or what's some tips that you could share there of how to get the most out of collaborating with them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to have the relationships. You have to be willing to listen and admit what you don't know. I find many people who work in operations or frontline, they would love to share that feedback. They're looking for ways to make the experience better for our patients and customers. So just being an active listener is number one. I think being more transparent, sharing, oftentimes frontline team members may not know what's happening in marketing. What are your marketing priorities? So how can you be more transparent and communicative to share with them, these are our goals, these are our priorities, these are the things that matter for us this year. Just that relationships is a good place to start.
You are now a VP at IU Health. Congratulations again. Given this new role, where will you be putting more focus now?
Yeah, great question, Colin. It's really across the entire customer journey. So really, to summarize, like my responsibility is to really help make IU Health become more patient and consumer oriented. We've been doing this kind of work for a long time, but really looking across the entire journey, pre-care, post-care, everything in between. These large health systems, we touch customers and patients in so many different ways. We've got to be more intentional, more thoughtful in our experiences. So we're working across all those continua.
I love how you use that word patient oriented because I think there's a little bit of backlash over patient centered because that seems to imply that we don't care about our staff as much.
Mhm.
But patient oriented means no, 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 we're putting a focus there, but we also have to care about
Yeah.
the people who care for them.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game. I truly believe if we have happy and engaged providers and team members, that correlates to happy and engaged patients and customers. So I think it's a virtuous cycle.
Jeremy, are there any specific projects that you will be spinning up at IU Health?
We have lots of projects, Colin. I tell people like right now, basically imagine anything you could change. We're trying to change it right now all at once. We announced last fall we're in the middle of a giant EMR migration over the next 2 years. So that's kind of a center of gravity. We have a massive new construction project in downtown Indianapolis replacing our biggest hospital. So it's everything all over the place. On the experience side, across the entire journey, it's not just tech or platforms. We have some cultural work we're doing. I think in terms of some people call it back to basics in terms of service behaviors, how we're actually presenting to our customers and patients. We have some work there. We're doing a lot of work around patient rounding, like encouraging our leaders to round on patients across different care settings to understand what matters most to them to help solve problems. Just as you can imagine, a variety of different tactics to drive that orientation around patients and consumers. So a lot going on there.
I love it. I will see you on the patient experience circuit then.
I will. I will
It
be
sounds
there.
like you
I'm still learning. I mean, I've worked adjacent to experience for a long time, but I've got to get better. I've got to learn more. So I'm really actively involved in it this year.
So I have to ask you this as a marketer. If when you look across the landscape of all the different technologies, practices, techniques, is there anything from a marketing perspective that's got you excited right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in January, so it's kind of a new year. It's kind of a fresh start. So that always excites me a bit. I think we have a lot going on right now across our industry. I think there are many, many opportunities for marketers to lean into their role to really drive and influence their organizations. Like I mentioned before, marketers are very close to the customer, to sort of that sentiment. We have to represent that across all of our decision making. There are challenges we're facing in terms of financial pressure, regulatory pressure, what have you. I think marketers are uniquely positioned to help differentiate. It's really strategically, how do we want to differentiate from those we compete with? That, at the end of the day, is marketing's job to influence behavior, influence decision making. So that alone excites me.
Final question, Jeremy. Where can people go to learn more about IU Health and where can they go to connect with you?
We're active across all channels, Colin. I would say LinkedIn, for your audience, we're very active on LinkedIn. I'm also personally very active there. That's the easiest way to do it. But pick your favorite social channel. We're there in some capacity.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the program. You shared a ton of gems on this one. Truly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Colin. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I want to thank Jeremy for agreeing to come on camera today. What I love about Jeremy is how he knows he doesn't have to have all the answers as a marketing leader. So he seeks input from and listens to those that have first-hand knowledge, like patients and frontline staff. I also love how he encouraged marketers to remain curious about new technologies like AI and to experiment with it until you find a good application. You don't have to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds with AI. You can give yourself a bit of time to figure it all out. Just don't take too long, or you'll be leapfrogged by the competition, as Jeremy put it. And if you enjoyed this interview, please mash that like button and click subscribe. Also, head over to Sway Health, that's Sway with 2 A's, .health, and that's where you'll find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.